when you collaborate as three people into one, any particular demarcation, any limit? I mean, do you limit yourself to this particular department, or it's like a cohesive thing?
It's completely cohesive. I mean, we do everything for the song, even from composition to programming to the instrumentation. I mean, keyboards and guitar I play, and there's no real set role as to who does what.
Nobody has a forte, or nobody has an expertise in particular.
No, everybody's got a certain expertise, but you just bring that in totality to the thing. Not very conscious of that. That is your particular area of expertise.
Yeah, in terms of, coming back to Johnny Gaddar in the song "Doob Ja Mere Pyar Mein," the hook seems a bit, catchy. It's very catchy, but किधर तो सुना हुआ लग रहा था हम लोग को.
No, it is just it's a lehra. It's a harmonium lehra which any beginner in a tabla class or any percussion class or a kathak dance. This is a lehra that plays in Indian classical music. It's the first thing that you play with a tabla player when he starts playing little bit, after he's learned the initial fingering techniques and all. When he starts playing, he plays with this lehra.
Okay.
So we thought it's a very cheeky thing to use
and very catchy thing to use.
And I'll try to come individually to everyone. I would like to know what have been your influences through the formative years, and there obviously are reflections when you start making music in some way or the other. I will start with you, Shankar.
For me, I think I've learned classical music in depth, and a lot of classical artists, especially South Indian classical artists, have influenced, because I feel South Indian music is very, very intense and complex. At the same time, there's a lot to learn, and it lends itself to various other forms of music, especially to jazz and to whatever. It's very funky. South Indian classical music it's got groove. It's got a funky spirit to it, as opposed to North Indian classical music, which has got peace, and it's got a calm nature. It's got sur in it. So a combination, a study of these both make you a very powerful musician. Your grammar becomes very, very strong. Then, of course, influences like what I've been with Ehsaan and Loy, and these people, they've influenced me with a lot of Western music, and especially other musicians like Louis Banks or so many other people. I've played with so many bands, listened to some music. All this influences you, and you tend to use principles of those forms of music in creating popular music.
What about you, Loy?
I started off with, of course, a lot of early Beatles, some of the earlier rock bands, a little bit of Doors. I mean, my brother was playing in a rock band, so at that time it was very popular. So we had access to all the rock records. But at some point during that, there was a transition. I was also, while growing up, I would always go to sleep with a lot of Indian classical music. My dad was, I really literally grew up on the radio. Radio was my the medium. It was a gateway for the music for me. And I would always fall asleep listening to Indian classical music on the radio. Either Western classical music in the afternoon that used to play at 2:30, I think, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or at Indian.
There was a national program of Indian classical music that used to happen.
So every night, I mean, that was the default.
10 to 11 or something.
So I would fall asleep with that. So I mean, I know some. I mean, I've not studied it, but I think there is something that I understand by default because I've heard it. Okay, it's like subconsciously. Then much later I switched to a lot of R&B, a lot of blues. Guys like Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles. There's a whole lot of singers. Then I got into jazz, and that actually has been my very strong the area that I love listening to. When I go home, I listen to a lot of jazz. I listen to a lot of film scores, a little bit of electronic music as and when. I'm pretty much open to a lot of music.
Okay.
But my default zone that I love to listen to is always jazz. I love to listen to a lot, especially mainstream jazz.
Or you, Ehsaan?
God, for me it's a long list of influences actually. The thing is, of course, I started listening to rock with an album by Deep Purple called Fireball, which I heard, and then I was introduced to Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, which really freaked me out, and Led Zeppelin 4. Those were the first 3 albums that I got into rock with. Then later on I got into the blues when I heard this guitar player called Johnny Winter, who was an American blues player. And then I got into this whole journey of blues, and of course blues and rock, because it's so closely related. And then in '85 when I went to study music in America, that's when I got completely open to different styles, whether it was country or classical or or whatever. And then I used to listen to a lot of the 80s pop stuff, like the Police,
Okay.
who I think Andy Summers is one of the finest guitar players there is. But influences wise, who I listen to all the time would be guitar player Robin Ford, Larry Carlton, B.B. King, Eric Clapton, who I like a lot. Now I like to listen to John May a lot. I listen to a lot of John May. I think he's a fantastic musician. But in terms of listening, there's a whole lot of stuff, whether it's dance or ambient or film scores, it just keeps going on.
Keeping aside music and films, you're very big in that. Any albums you're doing recently, or any sort of thing which is apart from music, the mainstream music, or I mean, you can just.
We're planning many things, but we'll be starting very soon.
Jingles,
Jingle is always going on. We pretty much jingle at least twice a month, if not more.
And any latest movies you planning to work on, or is just contract you cannot speak about it?
The movies are there till next year end. Yeah, it's a line of movies. So
The
list is endless.
List is endless.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, by the time we finish with one production house and we finish all the others, then this first production house is ready for the next release, the next movie. So it's an ongoing
We all
process.
already pretty much always about 4 or 5 projects ahead. Even like all the rock on is right now.
Rock on for us
It's
creatively is way
it's
behind.
way long time.
I was amazed to see there's very few movies which actually show guitars being connected to the amps. How many Hindi movies show you, that particular, detailing and all that?
We're talking about guitars connected to the amp. I know a Hindi movie where there's a guy playing a guitar and actually
Just
the
playing
sound
a-
is a trumpet or something,
Yeah,
or
I've
vice
seen that
versa.
also.
Taiwan, that's
Some synthesizer thing where the
it's-
actors found it, like hip to play a guitar.
The backup musicians have been the same. You've been taking them, or is a particular band who's been playing?
No, it's the
for
guys who work with us in our live shows.
Okay,
okay.
They're very good young musicians.
Okay. That's cool. Any questions you have?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.